You know how I'm always going on and on about that one look I really like to do with the Ultrasuede brown pigment and the Bronze Seduction palette from Pat McGrath Labs. I figured on the off chance that you own this pigment or you are willing to substitute it with an alternative from your collection, maybe you would like to see how I create this exceptionally simple look. Because I'm just feeling like wearing it today. That's basically it. Hello and welcome to this week's pet pairing. I'm going to start off by applying my eyeshadow primer, my Inglot eyeshadow base. I'm on a roll this week, you guys. I filmed like 3 videos. I still have to edit 2 of them, this one and the one I filmed yesterday. But I was a busy social butterfly this week. I went out for dinner twice. I was out for dinner Tuesday with my colleagues because we had a guest researcher and it was her last day, so we said goodbye and we went to have dinner together with the whole group. And then yesterday I hung out with my besties, which we hadn't done in a while, so it was actually really lovely. So you know, I've picked up and been using this Too Faced Hold and Fluff brow wax thing, but I don't want to neglect completely my L'Oreal Brow Artist Plumper, so I'm actually just going to like switch around. So today I'm going to do the L'Oreal Brow Artist Plumper because I do still really like this product. It just doesn't hold my brows in place for as long as the Too Faced brow wax thing, but I don't necessarily always really need for my brows to stay on all day. It's fine if they droop a bit towards the end. So today, theoretically, I'm having my last, well, not last, but like when I started taking my singing lessons, I prepaid for like 10 lessons because it was a package, it was a little bit cheaper, and I figured 10 lessons will really be barely sufficient for me to learn something. So today is going to be, I think, theoretically, my last lesson from that package, or maybe my last but one. She keeps track of that more than I do. And I've been having a lot of fun at my singing lessons, but last time, because we were, you know, approaching the end of this adventure, I'm going to apply just a little bit of this Becca primer, like a pore filling primer, just here on my cheeks. I mean, I've learned a lot of things, and I am not out there to become Beyonce or partake in, you know, the Dutch idol competitions. None of that is in the stars for me. Honestly, I'm just there for like funsies, to learn something and to possibly improve a little bit my singing. But I've told you this before, that when I first went to her, she was like, it's all great, you can sing in tune, but you're basically singing in that like one specific type of singing, which is like very soft. So ever since, I'm going to apply the Pat McGrath foundation now, and I am going to try to go back a little bit to using a sponge for my foundations, because I still have a ton of sponges in my backup drawers, and while I like my brushes quite a bit, I should probably like switch it up every now and then. So I want to be reminded of how much I like using a sponge to apply my foundations. And I'm still thoroughly determined to finish as much of this as possible before my tan changes dramatically. Anyway, so she's been trying to get me out of singing in my favorite, you know, comfort zone style, which is this like very soft type of singing. And very soft means that I just sing with a lot of like air in my voice, and that is not a way of singing that has a lot of power to it. So she's been like trying to get me out of there. It's been difficult because obviously I don't know the first thing about singing. I don't really quite have a good grasp of what exactly I'm doing when I'm doing something. And even when she tells me, okay, you need to do this, and then when you go home and you practice, you should practice with these specific types of singing. And I go home and then I'm like, I have no idea what that was. Was that the right way? Was that the wrong way? Who's to tell? So I asked her, like, I was like, listen, if you think that there's really no point for me to continue because I'm completely hopeless, you should tell me, like, I can take the truth. I don't have aspirations to be Beyonce, so you're not going to break my heart if you say that I suck and I should stop and not waste my time and money. But she seems like the kind of person, and she told me a little bit like her personal story, which basically made it sound like she became a singer against all odds, against like teachers telling her that she can't sing, going through a full year when she basically lost her voice because of that psychological, you know, pressure, but she still managed to persevere, power through, and go to the academy and become a singer. So I think that for as far as she's concerned, singing wise, there are no hopeless cases. By the way, I still have not done my concealer and corrector, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to apply a little bit of my Charlotte Tilbury color corrector because yeah, I had a really tiring day yesterday. I slept like a brick, but I feel like when I have a tiring long day, my under eyes always look a little bit more blue than usual. So I'm going to apply a little bit of this corrector, and I'm just going to use it like this on my fingers. And then we're going to go in with the concealer, and again I'm going to use a sponge because I think that's going to apply the concealer like even more hydrating. By the way, I really enjoy how this foundation looks with a sponge as well. And then she of course also asked me like, what do you think yourself? And I was like, well, I can hear that I'm no Beyonce, but I am really enjoying, you know, learning all of these like new techniques, because I can already tell that I'm a bit more conscious when I think of whether or not... Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you what I'm doing for concealer. I'm mixing my Huda Faux Filter in the shade Meringue with my Lancome Taint Idol in the shade 01. I'm going to apply the shade 01 now. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, as long as I'm having fun and I'm learning something, I'm okay with continuing. But, you know, I also don't want to waste her time. If she's like, oh my god, this girl is completely, you know, an absolute tragic disaster, she's never gonna achieve anything and she's just wasting her money, I would rather, you know, she told me that. But she said that as far as she's concerned, we can just continue. But she did, and I thought that was the really funny part, she did say that I was a challenge. Mainly because I need to be taken out of my comfort zone, and I really struggle to get out of my comfort zone, because all of my life I've tried to, you know, sing more quietly because I didn't want to make anyone's ears bleed. And I've just been like singing under the shower type. So getting me out of that state is going to require a little bit more time and patience. And obviously I go to those lessons sporadically. Theoretically I'm going like every 2 weeks, but in practice, if I'm really tired or one of us for whatever reason cannot make it, it can easily be 3 to 4 weeks between my lessons. And practicing is also really difficult for me because, and I think I mentioned that last time, in the weekends when I want to practice, Nicola comes here and literally tells me to shut up because his ears are hurting. Thank you, son. And in the evenings he's sleeping. Obviously I can't be belting it out. So there's really very little time and energy for me to be doing a lot of practicing for those lessons. So yeah, I am going to be quite a challenge for her, but I think I've already decided that I'm going to do 10 more lessons and see how far I can take it, because I think with how sporadically I've been showing up to these lessons and the fact that I'm already aware of so many ways to change how you sing, and I'm really trying, I think we could probably get there if we persevere. So we've been focusing on practicing songs from Madonna because I'm a huge Madonna fan, and Madonna's never been the greatest singer in the world. Although now that I'm trying to sing her songs, I'm realizing that maybe she's a better singer than I think she was, and she definitely became a much better singer after Evita. I don't know if you guys remember, she played in the musical Evita by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and she received a ton of vocal coach training when she was doing Evita, and I think she really stepped up her singing after that. So, you know, if someone like Madonna can learn to do more things with their voice after having been in the business for so long, because at the time she did Evita she was already Madonna, you know, then there's maybe some hope for me. Oh, I forgot to tell you what I did. For powder, I just grabbed my Dior Backstage powder because, as I have mentioned this on several occasions already, this is my favorite powder to pair with a specific foundation. I think my base turned out really nice. It looks very like natural and blended in. I applied my foundation before my concealer, and I think that also worked out just fine. I don't know why I'm so set on always applying my concealer before my foundation, but I think this worked out really well as well. For bronzer today, I'm going to take this beautiful cream bronzer from Miss Charlotte Tilbury in the shade 2 medium, and I'm going to go in with a very light hand because that bronzer can get a bit much quite quickly on my relatively fair skin at the moment. Also, I did binge watch quite fast season 3 of True Detective, and I actually quite liked it. I'm a bit tempted to watch season 2 now, just to see how bad it is in comparison to season 3 and season 1. I watched season 1 such a long time ago, and by such a long time ago I mean pretty much when it came out, like a decade ago, and I remember really enjoying it, but I do not recall what the story was about. Like, if you ask me what season 1 of True Detective was about, I have flashes of Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, some really depressing, you know, bummer shit going on, the swamps of Louisiana, and heavy southern accents. That is all I recall. So I have really no comparison, like, between season 1 and season 3. I can tell you I enjoyed both. I think season 1 was maybe better than season 3, but I still enjoyed season 3 a lot. Mahershala Ali and Stephen Dorff played the two main leads, like the two detectives. I had forgotten about Stephen Dorff's existence. Okay, Stephen Dorff was something from the 90s, and when I saw his name in the credits I was like, that guy still acts? Okay. And he actually did a terrific job, I have to say. Mahershala Ali is amazing, so we don't have to comment much on his acting. He was absolutely amazing. But I really enjoyed it. It plays out in like 3 different timelines, and in the latest timeline, Mahershala Ali's character actually is alluded to suffer from Alzheimer's. Excuse me, I'm going to get my blush. I got inspired by Pat's Instagram, where they are doing runways at the moment, and at one point one of the models was one of the models maybe Naomi Campbell, that could be, was wearing Electric Bloom, and I tend to not really use Electric Bloom much in the winter because look at it. But you know what, I'm feeling like Electric Bloom today to liven up that complexion. So the story is playing out in like 3 different timelines, and a crime, like the disappearance of a little girl and the murder of her brother, that they have not been able to solve throughout 25 years. Was kind of a bummer story, one of those that eventually, you know, basically could be summed up to tragedy breeds more tragedy kind of thing. And in a way it was almost, I don't want to give away too much of the show, but I also want to like mention what I think about it. The ending was a bit not anticlimactic, but anticlimactic maybe for them, because when they finally solved the crime, basically like the room where she was kidnapped, the house where she was kept for years were derelict because everyone, or like most of the people involved in the crime, were no longer alive, and the girl herself was all on the run for years. Anyway, I think it was really well done. It had some really like poetic, poignant moments towards the end, so I actually quite enjoyed it and would highly recommend it. But now the bummer part is I don't know what I'm going to watch next. I might finally try to watch Wednesday and see what that Wednesday dance is all about, because the internet's been spamming with the Wednesday dance since that show came out, so maybe I will go and check it out. Oh, I like this blush so much. It is just so vibrant and enlivening. For highlighter, I think this Suku Melting Powder Highlighter in the shade 101. Is that the case? Yes, 101. It was part of the Summer Limited Edition collection from last year. But I think that color is going to look really pretty with Electric Bloom, because they both have like those summer vibes to them. I still have not watched the latest episode of The Last of Us, so I'm probably going to watch that this evening, because you know, Friday evening, no better time to eat delicious food, couch potato, and watch your favorite show. So I'm finally going to watch that latest episode. I am under the impression that this is the last but one episode, which is a little bit sad, but I still have, oh yeah, I still have The Mandalorian. I can still watch The Mandalorian. I haven't started that yet. The Last of Us episode, I want to say 7? The one where they once again have a flashback, but they go a bit deeper into the story of Ellie. To be honest with you, it was not one of my favorite episodes. I actually had to ask one of my friends who is into the game whether that storyline is in the game or not, because I know that for episode 3, with the story of Frank and... oh, I forgot the other guy's name. Anyway, for the idyllic, you know, pandemic together story, they did a little detour that was not actually in the game. In the game, these two characters like were done really quickly. So I thought maybe this episode, because it was one of those where they just stopped the main story to go on this little side tangent, also felt a bit like it might have not been part of the game, but apparently it is a part of the game. It's part of the like extra storylines that you can follow. I'm going to spritz my brush a little bit with Fix Plus, and I totally understand that sometimes these like sort of like detours are important to explain, you know, the background of the character, their motivations, why they are the way they are, how they have changed after certain, you know, events. But to me that, I don't know, it was just not my favorite episode. And I really like Bella Ramsey. I think she's fantastic, phenomenal, you know, a child prodigy actor, but this was just not my favorite episode. I think I liked the previous episode, like the emotional episode of Pedro Pascal's character together with his brother. I think I liked that one more. Let's zoom you in and get started on that very complicated eye look that we're doing today. So I'm going to grab the Ultrasuede brown pigment, part of a very old kit that Pat released when the labs were first released, the Pat McGrath labs. So chances are high a lot of you will not have this eyeshadow, but just grab whatever like your favorite bronzy brown from Pat is, and you will achieve almost the same result. I'm a nerd when it comes to like the undertones of her eyeshadows, which is why I really like having this eyeshadow, because I think it really fits my complexion and eye color for some reason really well. But if you're not as nerdy about the undertones of your bronzy brown eyeshadows, then you don't have to go that deep into that. So I am going to apply this eyeshadow all over my lid, and what's I think interesting about this eyeshadow is that it's not a super sparkly eyeshadow. It's one of her satin metallics, so it will not have punch and impact. And for someone who is like me and prefers very punchy eyeshadows, it is very unusual. It is just very unusual that I like this eyeshadow so much, and I really think it has to do with the undertones. Every time I look at a picture that I've taken for like Instagram to post using this eyeshadow, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just think it looks so nice with my eye color. So I'm going to apply this eyeshadow all over my lid and blend it out. It's one of those beautiful formulas from Pat that can be adapted to be both a lid shade and a crease shade depending on how you go about it. If you start blending it out, it behaves more like a matte, and if you pack it on and maybe wet it a bit, it will even have a bit more shine as a metallic. But I like to use it basically like this with my jumbo blender from Sonia G, like a really large brush like that. If you have smaller eyes, so less eyelid space, you might want to go in with a smaller brush. But going back to The Last of Us and the last episode that I watched, which was not the last episode that is currently released, but the one before, it felt like one of those, you know, forced storylines where they're trying to fill the gaps, but apparently it was not. It very much reminded me of Stranger Things season 2, when they stopped the story to give us this like tangent episode of Eleven like becoming a goth child and hanging out with other like emo gifted kids, and that episode was like super boring. I did not like it at all. Every time I rewatched the show, I just immediately skipped that episode because it was just not my favorite. So the one from The Last of Us now was maybe not as bad, and I think it is important to build up the character of Ellie, but it was just not my favorite. I can't wait to go back to the main storyline and see what happens there. I'm not gonna waste any time, and I'm just going to grab my favorite little small brush here from Sonia G. This is the Soft Definer from the Lotus set, and I'm going to apply this bronzy shade also on my lower lashes, because this eyeshadow will basically constitute most of the look. I am going to add some fun sparkles from the Bronze Seduction palette, but this eyeshadow is always the focus, the main focus of this look. I was watching Martina try new makeup yesterday, and she tried this new mascara dry shampoo thing from MAC, and I was intrigued. I immediately went to check on the Douglas website but currently they're not having a sale, and that thing costs 30 euros, so there's no way I'm paying full price for that, but I am really intrigued. So that is something you're definitely going to see come by in like trying new things at some point soon. I'm going to take the absolute tiniest bit of glitter glue, and I'm going to apply that glitter glue basically mostly concentrated here in my inner corner and just the tiniest bit on the inner portion of the lid, but like the absolute tiniest bit. That is just to help the astral shade stick a little bit better. Now before I apply the astral shade, I'm going to apply a little bit of an inner corner highlight, which is going to be the boring champagne shade, the one here from Bronze Seduction, which I actually really like because it has like more champagne goldeny tones to it, and I really like champagne golds the most as inner corner highlights for myself. So I really like this. This is one of my favorite like champagnes that Pat's ever done in her palettes. And then I'm gonna go into Astral Lumen Gold here on my finger, and I'm actually not even going to take that much. I'm just taking a few flakes, as you can see, and I'm going to press those here in the inner portion of the lid and then slightly feathering it out towards the rest of the lid, because I really don't want this shade to overtake too much of the Ultrasuede brown pigment, but I do want to add that like subtle layer of sparkly. So I'm just going to feather that out towards the lid area, and then I'm going to take the little brush from Sonia again, take this shade on the brush and once again press it here into the inner corners, because I want the inner corners to be where I have the most amount of shine and glitter. So what do we think about this extremely simple look? I told you the look is extremely simple, but I just really like it, and I know a couple of you have commented on my Instagram that you also really like it, so I figured you might not mind actually seeing it in action. Obviously this look just begged for a red lipstick. You can like paint the town red here, pun intended, whatever red lipstick you love for that day you may put it on. I went with an oldie but a goodie. This is Bad Blood from Urban Decay. It is one of my favorite, like more classic type reds. It is actually an it is a spot-on dupe for Elson from Pat McGrath, so you can always bust out your Elson if you have that, or any of the other gorgeous reds that you have in your collection. I hope that you enjoyed this look and, as usual, my random ramblings. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!